Townsend. What a great kick.
Robin Townsend plays on. Plays to the whistle. Kicks away for Valentine Holmes. Canela's in again.
Wow.
Chad Townsend, brilliant.
Yo, we're back, baby. Welcome back to another episode of the Chad Townsend Show. And on today's episode, gives me great pleasure, someone who I absolutely love listening to their podcast. Big fan of his. Bloke In A Bar. Denan Kemp, thanks for coming on the show, brother.
The energy, the vibe, the arousal, it's all there.
The arousal.
It's all there, baby.
The people's beak.
Oh, mate. I'm glad we've got this space between us because I don't know if the beak could handle much closer. I don't know if I could handle it.
We are quite close. The people's beak. Mate, how you been? Thanks for coming on today.
Mate, I've been really good, I guess. It's funny because a lot of people say, oh, off season this and, just everything chills out and quietens down and everything. But I find it is a huge opportunity for people like us to step into that vacuum that exists and go harder.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're similar, but I get sick pleasure out of watching other people not work and me work. You know what I mean? I get aroused. Because like when I see like these guys on holidays and that, which is sweet. Like I'm not some dick that's like, hey, grind your fucking balls off or anything like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like I'm extremely competitive in a respectful way.
Yep.
But when I see them all on holidays, I'm sure it's just a coping mechanism that I'm on holidays, but I also get this like, fuck, bro, I'm grinding, bro. I fucking got you.
Yeah.
I got you, cunt.
Even when I came and did Bloke In A Bar the other week, the first thing I walked in, I said, hey, yo, bro. He goes, I've been grinding. And I love it. I was like, yeah, I love that.
Mate, it's just,
I love it.
I think it's just, you got to have that fire.
Yeah.
You got to, it's like in anything, bro. You got to have that. I feel like I don't have the fire to like compete physically anymore. Like a lot of people are like, why don't you play and this? I'm like, man, I couldn't be fucked. Like, whatever. Like, okay, you beat me in touch footy or whatever. I'm mad.
Yeah.
Whereas this, I'm like, man, I just want to grind every day. So I guess I'm lucky though. I get to do what I want. I totally understand people listening like, man, I want to fucking grind every day. Like I'm working in a mines or I'm in retail trying to sell extra socks, mark up prices and stuff like that. What's it called? It's called a sell up or I used to work in general pants.
Yeah, right.
It's kind of like you sell them the shirt and then when they get to the counter, you say, would you like some socks with that? And because they make huge margins on that, it's like a sell up or some shit. Like, I don't know what the fuck it's called. They even do that with like products. What they'll do is they'll release like the shitty product, quotation marks, at like, let's say $50. And then they'll sell the good, cool product at like 60. And they make that price difference so close that you're like,
You take that one.
I'll take the expensive good one.
Yeah.
But in reality, they're pretty much the same product.
Yep.
Anyway.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, mate, what an intro, mate. Like I said, thanks for coming on today. Look, there's so much, I'm pretty keen to talk into today. But I want to throw it back and I want to start with some footy. And obviously, former NRL player, played a number of NRL games across a few different clubs. But talk to me about growing up. Did you play footy as a kid? Was it something you were always into or, how'd you get into it?
Mate, honestly, growing up, footy was seen as the enemy. It's kind of like the way NRL fans see soccer. Like, man, fuck soccer, And it was kind of similar to me. Like, as a soccer player, I was like, man, footy, so dumb. Like, all they do is run at each other. And again, it's out of ignorance. I didn't know what the...
So you played soccer?
So I played soccer, yes. Yeah. So I played soccer, but no footy. Like, I didn't play any footy growing up. And I was seriously into soccer. A bit of track when I was younger, like went to state nationals, all that kind of stuff. So I was seriously into soccer, like, all the Queensland rep sides, went to England for it, was with the Queensland Roar before I came to the Broncos. And it was basically, as I got older, I started to get a little bit more interested in league, but not to the point where I was like watching it or anything. I've only got one memory, and that's with my granddad watching Steve Renouf fucking kill it. But outside of that, man, there was no interest. It was just basically soccer was the direction. My brother was over in England with, I think, Nottingham Forest at the time, like as I was coming out of school. Or the last year at school, I had nationals for soccer for the Queensland side. So we went away to play in New South Wales, WA, all that kind of stuff. And a few weeks before it, so it's funny because I'd grown up with the same group of friends from grade, they weren't really my friends, they bullied the fuck out of me, but people from grade 1 to 12 pretty much. So they had seen everything that I had achieved athletically and sports wise. So they knew that like I was athletically gifted or whatever. You know, because when I was younger, I, you know, won national titles, state titles, all that kind of stuff. And they'd seen that. So they knew that like whatever sport I played, I went okay at. Anyway, I got to the year 11. We were in grade 11. There's this thing called confraternity. And the year 12, so the year 12 people, like it's usually for year 12. It's like if you're grade 11, you don't usually play in it unless, especially at our school, because rugby league wasn't a subject or even like a sport that we played as one of our sports. So like we're just a Catholic school called St. Michael's. It is now pretty much ever since not a subject, but more focused ever since I played NRL. Anyway, so the year 12ers were like, Dan, like, fuck, like come play confraternity. And I was like, man, I don't want to play footy, but they knew I could play footy. So there was no excuse of like, I don't know how to play or I don't go okay at it. So I told them that I had a soccer tournament that I was away for soccer and that's why I couldn't play. Anyway, so the problem is that confraternity was on the Gold Coast at this point. And so just like I'm with one of my like 1,000 exes ago, Mrs. High School girlfriend, and I'm walking down to get ice cream. A bus drives past yelling and ranting and raving at me, and it's the confraternity team. You fucking dog, you told us you had a soccer tournament. But I would just lie and just didn't want to go. Didn't want them to be like, why can't you go? And so the next year when it came around, I was still like, I got nationals for soccer in a few weeks. I can't afford to get injured. But this time, because I was in year 12 and this was my age group, so they knew what I could do or whatever. The school and everyone kind of got behind me and was like, mate, you got to come. I was like, you know what? Fuck, all right, I'll give it a crack. And what also was really crazy story, and it's like no word of a lie, no exaggeration. Like there's no GST on this story. It sounds fucking mental. So one of my friends who was also the lead bully. So this guy used to, because he loved sport, but he wasn't as good as it. So he always used to, every time I'd come home from nationals and like whatever, he'd be there because he was a popular kid. He was the most popular. So he was a massive bully, but every now and then we'd get along. It was usually after I would fight him and then it would get sweet. Anyway, so he was a massive Broncos fan and still is to this day. And we were sitting at lunch and he said to me, bro, you've got to come away to confraternity because I guarantee you'll be scouted by the Broncos. And I was like, I just kind of like didn't think about it. And everyone else around the table was like, nah, no chance. Like at this point, Darius Boyd, Stevie Michaels were like the big dogs in Gold Coast. Yep. And they were like, look, he's good for like us, but we are a non-footy team, a non-footy school. He's not good compared to guys like Stevie Michaels, Darius Boyd, all the guns that were coming out of school at that time. And he was the only guy that was like, nah, he absolutely will get scouted by the Broncos. And it's like, it's that bizarre. What's so bizarre is this guy that was like the lead bully throughout my whole high school thingo was still, I guess, man enough or whatever to say that the Broncos will scout you. Anyway, so I was like, you know what? I'll go up. I think the school even like fundraised a little bit, chipped in some money for me to go. Yep. Went up there. I think one game I scored like 5-6 tries or something and just went okay and won the player with the most potential. And even then, so I was real sick on the last day. And again, in my head, I was like, I don't care about rugby league. I'm just here to play with my mates, have a bit of fun. Yep. I want to play with the most potential. Got up and got the award, which was Ivan Henjak, which was their scout at the time. And he just said, at this point, you weren't allowed to speak to anyone else if you were contracted to a club. Mm-hmm. And he said, look, I don't know if you're contracted with another club, so please let us know if that's not the case. Like, if we're not allowed to talk to you, please let us know. And I was like, I just didn't. Honestly, didn't, because I was so sick, I didn't even listen. Anyway, probably a week went by. And I told my parents I had one player with the most potential, and they wanted me to go to this development camp. And I was like, so my parents were like, what the hell? So my dad rang the Broncos, asked to speak to Wayne, and said to him, we've got our kid, you've asked him to go to a development camp, but he doesn't play rugby league. So we don't understand what you want or whatever. And they were like, what do you mean he doesn't play rugby league? Like he doesn't play with a club or a team or contract or whatever. And he's like, no, he doesn't play rugby league. He's going to nationals for soccer literally next week. And so Wayne was like, he was like, what, really? Okay. And then so there was a development camp at the end of the year for the development guys. And development guys are like, maybe one out of them might get a contract coming out of school, but they're usually the just in case. They're like where you pour water through, the sifter. Yep. And just in case one stays. Yep. Then there's the elite camp. And that's the guys that are, making your state teams. And, and pretty much they're going to get some kind of contract when they leave school. Not a big one, but some kind of contract. And so they said, don't come to our development camp. We want you immediately at our elite camp. So I went to the elite camp, rocked up, didn't know nothing, but I was a competitor and really fast, good footwork. and they loved that. I think there was like one moment where this guy made a break and everyone else stopped chasing. I chased him, I caught him, and I think they just loved that. So they sat me down and said, look, we would love you to come to play for our under-19s Broncos side next year, because 20s wasn't in the comp then. Yep. And so I was like, oh, okay, I'll have a think about it. Went to the Queensland Raw at the time and was like, look, the Broncos are interested in me in a contract. What do you guys think? And they said, well, it's obviously your decision. But at this point, when I was 16 years old, I was in the Queensland Raw's reserve grade squad. So that's like being in the Clydesdale's Q Cup.
Yep.
So
it's pretty big.
It's huge.
Yeah, definitely.
It's like the best of the best are only going to do that. And so they pretty much said, look, you'll probably play A-League in 2 years if you stay. And at that point, I was like, oh, okay, sweet. Like, that didn't deter me, the 2 years thing, because I was like, okay, that sounds about right. And then AFL heard about a kid that had the ability to change fucking sports or whatever. So I sat down and had a lunch with the Brisbane Lions, and they said, look, if you come across to us, we promise to train you personally, individually, full-time for 6 months and fast-track you to the draft. We'll take you to the draft, and then, if you get picked up, you get picked up. And I was like, fuck, all right, sweet. So I had to think about it. My dad loved AFL.
3 codes to choose from.
Yeah. Well, at the time, it didn't feel like that. But now when you look back, that's
an incredible story, eh?
But I hate telling it because I feel like a Derek. You know what I mean? Like, fucking, look at this guy. Fucking think he's killing it. Anyway, so my dad loved AFL. So it was like, oh, fuck, like, maybe, I don't know. And then soccer, I don't know. I was just like, there was so much politics in soccer. Like, there was just even though I was making all the sides and destined, I was part of the Queensland Raw and going really well, I just wasn't enjoying, like, there was just some love that I was falling out of. I don't know what it was, but on top of that, I'd seen my brother go to England and he came home because he was like, I just don't want to do this. So he started studying medicine when he came home. And so that kind of like, okay, well, with my brothers, because the kind of plan was like to follow my brother to England. I was like, okay, that's not there. And to be honest, like, rugby league was just the easiest in the sense of like, as long as you were tough and ran, like, that's if you're an athletically gifted player and you're willing to work hard, you can make NRL.
Yep.
In my opinion.
Yep.
Not in the halves, not in like 9 or whatever, and maybe fullback these days you can't, or you at least train it. But if you're athletically gifted, you can usually make a squad. Anyway, so I was like, you know what? It's the Brisbane Broncos. At the time, they were the number 1 franchise in the country, bar none, like, period. Any sport, whatever, bigger than any AFL club. So I rocked up. I got the contract, the under-19s contract. I think it was like $4,000. Paid for half. Like, I got a blue Honda Civic. And I paid half, like, my $4,000, then the parents chipped in $4,000. And so I had to live at home on the Gold Coast. I drove up every day to training and rocked up the first day, and they were like, oh, we don't want you with our under-19s Broncos side. We want you to train with our Clydesdale side, our Broncos reserve grade.
Yep.
And this is when Q Cup was massive.
Yep.
And I was like, what? Like, okay, sweet. Like, again, had no idea. I remember, like, one of my first sessions, I've told this before, but one of my first sessions, we did, like, tackling on the pads. And this is tackling on the pads, so it's like, it's not full contact. It's nothing. It's literally nothing. I had to stop because I was cramping my shoulders because I had never tackled before. Matter of fact, so much so I hadn't tackled before. The week before I went up, my old sprinting coach took me and my brother down to not even a footy field, to the fucking track, and was making my brother just run and me tackle him to teach me how to tackle because I didn't know how to tackle.
How much did you weigh then?
73.
Jeez.
So yeah, fucking whip it. Like, could just run all day, but no weight.
Yeah.
So that's like, I didn't know where to put my head. I didn't know how. Like, the only technique he taught me was going low. Like, that's it. No, none of the high shit. None of that shit. And my poor brother, he's never played. He definitely hasn't played rugby league. He was just like, had to run fucking straight. It would have been if you could film it, it would have been so embarrassing if you could see that footage now. So like, put it this way, I was so far away from being a footy player that there was like a circle of players, and this was all the young guns coming out of school in the Clydesdale squad, and the reserve grade coach went around the circles, probably like 15 guys, and these guys had played for Queensland under, whatever, 18, 17s, whatever it was back then. And he was like, you're ready for reserve grade. You're ready for reserve. Like, every single person, you're ready for reserve grade. Got to me, I was the only person that he said, you're not ready for reserve grade. And I was like, oh, shit.
In front of everyone.
Yeah, in front of everyone. Damn. But in saying that, out of all of that group, I was the only person to play reserve grade that year.
Jeez. Man, that's a crazy story. So you've literally started playing rugby league in year 12 at high school, earned yourself a scholarship contract with the Broncos, worked your way into play reserve grade with the Clydesdales, and then literally playing NRL within 3 years of playing, of starting to play rugby league. Your debut for the Broncos in 2007 against Manly. Talk me through your debut. When did you find out, and how was the game against Manly?
Man, I don't remember how I found out. I honestly can't remember.
Were you in the 17?
I was in the 17.
Yep.
And it was kind of like one of the things where I'd been 18th man, and it was like the year before, because I was so new. So the year before, we had a few injuries, and Wayne Bennett was so unsure of whether I'd be able to handle it. He actually put the winger from local league as 18th man over me as the reserve. I was playing for the Clydesdales and the Q Cup's leading try scorer. But he took a guy called Gideon Mazembe that I had his spot. Yeah. Like I was the number one winger in reserve grade. This guy couldn't make eventually he played Q Cup, but he was in local league.
Yep.
He became 18th man, and I didn't get. I remember that this was in 2006. This is the year we won the comp, pretty sure. It might have been earlier in 2007, but I'm pretty sure it was 2006. I remember like going to the car in tears because I couldn't fathom how is a guy that I've got the spot in reserve grade getting put as 18th man, but I don't even get put as 18th man. Eventually, I think I got put as 18th man that year, which is a funny story in itself. But the next year, it was kind of like, okay, now I've made that progression, and it was not an expected thing, but everyone kind of knew. You know what it's like because Carmichael, he played Origin, and so with the Broncos, especially around that time, you knew that around Origin time, the baby Broncos are going to get a crack.
Yep.
And so I don't remember getting told, but I do remember I used to be really anal on game day. So on game day, you weren't allowed to text me, call me, speak to me, and everyone knew it. And if you did, I would fucking blow up, blow up. That includes like mom, missus, anything. Do not fucking contact me on game day.
Focus.
Exactly. Like I just need to be so fucking focused. It's crazy. Anyway, and on top of that, I said to my parents, I don't want you to come down because this is something I need to do by myself. Like I don't want you to be there, me thinking about it, whatever. Anyway, so I played and went all right or whatever.
Scored a try in a bit, didn't you?
Yeah. It was. I think it was rated one of the best tries of the year.
Yeah, right.
It wasn't bad. I mean, it wasn't fucking bad. It wasn't bad. It was. It's a good story behind it because like.
And did you win as well?
Nah, we didn't win. Manly won the comp that year. I think 2007.
Yeah, I think that rings a bell. Yeah.
Well, they were there or thereabouts.
Yep.
They won in 2008. Sorry, but I think they were a good side in 2007. I think they're minor premierships. Anyway.
Yeah.
So the try came about from Wayne's genius, really. So what happened is that before the game, Wayne said, Denan, I want you to stand as deep as you can stand for the whole game. That they will chip and chase for Brett Stewart. They will 100% do that, and you'll have enough speed to get there. And so watching the game back, the commentators, I think it's Laurie Daly, was like, look, he's standing way too deep, but he's a rookie, so that's understandable. But they didn't know that I'd been told to stand way deeper.
Masterstroke by Bennett.
Masterstroke. Anyway, so boom, chip comes out. I see the chip happening, and I remember it clear as day. As I'm running to it, I said, either I'm going to get knocked out or he's getting knocked out. I don't care, but I'm not changing my line for anyone.
Yeah.
And so I just sprinted as hard as I could at the ball, and you can see the catch. Like, it may have been because I got there earlier, or it may have been because his experience. He's like, man, I'm not getting fucking knocked out for an attacking play. Anyway, so yeah, get the ball, 75-meter try. Like break the line, step a few people, get through. And I just remember when I was in the clear, I was just like, is this actually happening? Like, it's not just a fall over the line try. This is an individual try. I just couldn't believe it. Put the ball down. And yeah, I ended up, what was crazy is about that game is that I think it's been broken now, but at the time, it was the most meters run by a debutant in the modern era of rugby league. And a Fox Sports journalist years ago messaged me that, and I was like, bro, that's great pub ammo. Great pub ammo. Great pub ammo.
So what was it like for you, I guess growing up in Queensland and then playing for a team like the Broncos? Like the Broncos, the Broncos, like there's so much, I guess, expectation when you wear the jersey. Obviously, you just mentioned, Wayne Bennett, the coach.
Yep.
Now, you mentioned players like Darius Boyd, who Carmichael Hunt, Lockyer, these players who are just great players. And you've come into the team. What was it like playing in that Broncos jersey where the expectation was so high?
It's hard because like people listening, when I say what I'm about to say, like this isn't like, it's hard because if I say how I really feel, it sounds arrogant and cocky. But as a professional athlete, you know, I was like, I am the best of the best. So internally, I wasn't really intimidated by the process. In my head, like I remember before I went at my debut, this weird calm came over me, and I felt literally like Superman. Like I felt like nothing could go wrong. I couldn't drop a ball.
Did you think that was because of like the jersey and the teammates around you?
I honestly can't tell you. I've never felt it again in my life.
Yep.
But at no point ever when I did play for the Broncos did I not feel, especially at the start of my career, I felt like I deserved to be there. Like I felt like I was the best winger at that age group in the country. Now again, I know that sounds super arrogant or whatever, but I think you'd find if most, especially high end athletes, are honest with you, they'll tell you that as well.
100%.
Is it true? Fucking probably not. You know what I mean? It probably isn't true.
But what is an athlete without self-confidence?
You just can't make it. You can't make it because you get your whole life you're getting told like, you know, this guy's the best. This guy's the best. Like, oh fuck, you should see this new half. He is fucking big, strong, fucking can kick. Or you should see this new winger. It's Manu Vadavai. You know. Yeah. So if you don't believe wholeheartedly in yourself, you're gonna let everyone else's opinion chip away at your confidence, and you're gonna have no confidence when you get out there. You're gonna be like, oh fuck, I'm not fast enough. Fuck, I'm not big enough. Oh man, have you heard about this guy? And so I had the advantage of kind of, because I'd been so good in other sports, I just felt like I was an elite athlete, and I felt like my internal belief lined up with the Broncos' internal belief that we were the best. That's what I felt like at the Broncos, is that there was a certain sense of arrogance, but we knew what came with that. If we want to believe we're the best, we have to deliver.
Yep.
And so it was always a matter of like, we are the best, but with that comes responsibility.
Definitely.
The issue comes when you think you're the best, or you're living off the past and you're not willing to make the sacrifice that they made.
Yep.
And you're not willing to respect that they were the best because of the actions they took, and they were the best for respecting what came before them. And I think that, you know, that's what happens when big clubs struggle, is that you get some people come in, and if you move on all the old guys too soon, the traditional way of passing down this knowledge,
the
culture gets completely gutted.
Agree.
And so at the Broncos, we had, I mean, I'm sure you felt it standing across from us, this kind of elite arrogance that we had.
Yep.
But we knew we had to back it up. And again, we come through a great time, you know, like we had Lockyer, Hodjo, Thorne, Tony Carroll, Petra Stivenasiva, Shane Webke. Like, these are all-time greats. Yep. So I'm totally aware of that. But the culture was, we are excellence. We are the best, and we should always be the best. But we have to be the best everywhere.
Yep.
And so, yeah, it's more looking back when I look at, fuck, you play for put it this way, when I see a person wearing a Broncos jersey, or I see kids playing footy, I'm like, fuck, I actually played at the peak level of that. That's what blows my mind now. I actually got to wear the Broncos jersey. Like, legends bled for me to be proud about that jersey. Yep. Legends laid the platform for me to be able to say and be proud I played for the Broncos. And, you know, I'd always be humbled and respectful to the people that came before me in that jersey, because at the end of the day, it's just a shirt.
Yep.
But it's what happened before that shirt that gives its value.
Yep. And
so I just feel honoured that the men before me lifted me up by creating the value in that jersey, and I got to wear it.
Yeah, man, that's freaking awesome. Who was your favourite teammate at the Broncos?
Favourite teammate?
One person.
One person. Mate, it was tough. Like, the first few years, I really struggled with rugby league culture. Like, I didn't have any enemies.
Yeah.
But I was just so quiet and scared to talk because I'd never been in rugby league culture. And people that, everyone, like,
it's a pretty out there culture, isn't it?
It's an aggressive culture. It's aggressive. It's aggressive if you don't understand it. Now I understand it.
Yeah.
But soccer was totally different. Soccer, you weren't allowed to wear thongs anywhere. You had to call your coach sir. Had to have a water bottle in your hand at all times.
Jeez.
It was totally different. Totally different. Come to footy and it was like, you're a fucking piece of shit. What are you doing? You fucking dumb whatever. Oh,
it's
man.
ruthless, eh?
Mate, it's ruthless. And it honestly took me a few years to really understand that, you know, not that you have to fight fire with fire, but they're only going to respect you if you kind of like join in. Whereas, like, I used to get sprayed and I would just be like, oh, fuck, okay, sweet. And just, like, you know, be real quiet. Yeah. And they took that as a kind of like, oh, he's an outsider.
Yeah.
So I didn't have issues. Like, there's no one that you could say that I played with and they're like, oh, Denan's a fucking dickhead or whatever. They were just like, oh, he was really quiet in the early years, and then he was a much more, I guess, as I matured and became more confident in my place there as a person outside of football. Like, on the field, always felt confident because I was always of the mind of, like, if you're a gun player, that's how you get respect.
Yep.
Be a gun, get respect.
Yep.
The outside stuff, I thought that would just take care of it. Like, if I'm killing it, like, just, obviously you're going to like me, but you've got to do more than that. You've got to commit yourself to, spending time with the boys and all that kind of stuff.
Build relationships.
Exactly, build relationships. And you honestly, nearly every young kid has the same issue. They don't understand that you have to go for the coffee that you don't really want to fucking go for.
Yeah.
Maybe go and have a few beers that you really didn't want to, go for. But it's about just showing the boys that you care about them.
Yep.
Whereas I always struggled when I was coming through, was like, how can they not see I care about them? Like, I fucking put my body on the line I love these boys. If they said, call me, I need you for something, I'll fucking be there. But I just don't feel like going for a beer, or whatever. Because I wasn't a big drinker coming through at all.
Yep.
It wasn't like I was anti-drink, but I was just so focused on. To be honest, in a perfect world, you'd find that I believe in a perfect world, athletes should only really drink sparingly.
Yep.
And also, like, if you are going to drink regularly at a low rate, 2-3 beers, go home, relax. Don't fucking smack a million beers. Don't get me wrong, time and place for that.
There's a time and place,
yeah,
100%.
Because you need it for bonding as well.
Yep.
But probably my favourite person that I did a lot for me and I respect was Alex Glenn. I really like him.
Yep.
When it comes to, like, playing with, obviously Lockie was the best to play with.
Yep.
Josh Hoffman's fucking hilarious. He's so funny.
I've seen some videos of him dancing actually post game.
He's fucking hilarious.
Freaking funny. Yeah.
Corey Norman, he was. Yep. We had a bit of a run in when we first met, but that was just because I was the older boy and he was the younger boy. Yep. But a run, not in a negative way, like not a massive run in. We were doing fitness and I was winning and he was coming like fucking nearly last. He reckons he was winning and he was lapping me, but gee up. And so, like, the 1.2K drill?
Yep.
So you always give way for the winner. If you're fucking lazy at the back, unfit, the winner, get out of his fucking way.
Yeah.
And so he didn't know that, though. It was like his first session. Anyway, so he was coming in and he was coming and he didn't move. And I was like, get the fuck out of the way. And blew up at him. And he was like, what the fuck? And then it wasn't until, and after I came up to him, I was like, oh, sorry, bro. And he was like, oh, fuck, I didn't know that. Sorry, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm still good mates with Normie, Jordan Kahu, Dral Yayi, love Dral Yayi.
Yep.
Love Dral. He's a fucking great person, man. And he's one of the most unlucky. He could have been one of the greatest wingers of all time, in my opinion.
Definitely agree with you.
And that's not at high. Well, you look at his size, speed, and footwork.
Yep.
He was incredible. Big boy. He was like in his prime. He was nearly 100 kilos, and he was fucking quick, good footwork, great on the high ball, strong as fuck. I love Dral. He's awesome. Who else? Darius, I was pretty close with Darius because we lived together. Yep. But that was through the years where I was like really trying to learn how to like become a part of the boys. But yeah, probably those boys are probably the ones I'd be the closest with.
Yeah, mate, that's unreal. So after your first Broncos stint, mate, head over to the Warriors across the ditch. Like myself, spent a bit of time across the ditch. I probably spent one season. You spent one season over there, didn't you? I spent 2 seasons over there. Yep. But mate, how'd you find it? And why did you sign with the Warriors? What was the go there?
Well, so I was told by the Broncos that I was third string winger.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm playing first grade, doing really well. And I was like, I'm not, I'd already re-signed 2007. I signed for less. Like, we promise you, so it's 2007. They said, please sign for less. We promise you'll start the season on the wing if you sign for less. So you're guaranteed a wing spot if you sign for less than your market value. So I played three or four games in my first year, and every single game was a really good. Put it this way: if I played those games today, you're looking at like 400-500 contracts.
Yep.
They said sign for less because we don't have any cap, like salary cap room, and this is the Broncos. You've just got to sacrifice because it's about winning premierships. And this was Wayne that said this, and I was like, all right, yeah, sweet, I'm 100%. I'll sacrifice, like sweet as. So I signed for $50,000. Which is fucking nothing for a guy that's played 4 NRL games, had one of the best debuts in modern history. 275 metres, a try, like fucking 6 tackle break. Like, it was a good debut. Yep. So I signed for $50,000. The next year rolls around and we bring on a player late in the preseason, and it was Reece Robinson. Anthony Mundine's cousin was with what was being thrown around. And so that came with weight, though. Chock's a gun. And Reece Robinson was good as well. Yeah. Anyway, so it comes to round 1 and he gets selected. So I walk into Wayne's office. I'm like, Wayne, you promised me that I'd start the season. Like, I literally signed for less money than that. And to Wayne's credit, he just said, look, he goes, oh, did I? And I was like, yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah, you did. And he's like, okay, I did then. And he just said, look, you just didn't excite me in the preseason games. And I was like, yeah, but like, anyway. So at least he was honest and said I didn't excite him. So I knew what I needed to go do.
Yep.
But also he started like playing, anyway. So he at least he gave me the honesty of like why he didn't select me in the thing. So I ended up fighting my way into the side in round 2, I'm pretty sure. I think Kay got injured, Carmichael. And so I had so about 10 games later or about 9 games later, they were like, look, you're still third string hooker behind Darius Boyd and Stevie Michaels. And I was like, guys, I want to play first grade. Like, I'm happy to take less because I've already been taking less for the last, because like first or second year, I think it was the first or second year out of school, made the under 19s, the second year out of school, under 19s Queensland side. So like I'd already been taking pay cuts. I went 4K, 25 grand, 50 grand. And so I was at the point where it's like, I want it like either I want to be playing first grade or I want an okay contract.
Yep.
And so they told me that. Anyway, so the Warriors didn't even offer me a big contract. Like, matter of fact, if I had stayed at the Broncos and played every first grade game, I would have been on more money. So they offered me 90 grand Australian dollars. But they said, you'll play first grade here. And I was like, well, fucking sweet. Like, I want to play first grade. Now, this is where I feel like my manager probably should have been a bit more informative of like how big that move is.
Yeah.
I was only 3 years into rugby league. I didn't know how hard it would be to move away to Warriors. I didn't know the history of players that go there and struggle and everything like that. Obviously, the manager's trying to do what he can do. Anyway, so they offer me that. I just say to my manager, yep, all right, I'll take it because I want to play first grade. So it wasn't like the problem was the fans thought I was coming across on like 400 grand or 300 grand or some shit when I came across on 90 grand, no match payments, which, yes, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's actually less money than what I would have earned 50 grand on match payments at the Broncos.
Yep.
So it wasn't about money. It was about getting a chance to play first grade. And I thought that I would suit the Warriors style of play, offloads, hanging around the middle, all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Anyway, so I just said to the manager, yep, I'll take it. Anyway, the next week I score 4 tries against Parramatta. And I just go on this, even like I'd already started the year well, but I hadn't accumulated these, great, games, whatever. So, that same week I scored, there's like a soccer try where I trap the ball, grubber it through, score against the Tigers.
I remember it. Awesome try.
Well, it's soccer. That's the only reason why I scored it because I played soccer all my life.
Yeah.
And then so the next week I scored 4 tries. So I haven't signed anything. I've only verbally agreed to my manager, not even to them. And then all of a sudden, bigger offers start coming in, like fucking way bigger offers, like hundreds of thousands of dollars more than the Warriors. But I, rightly or wrongly, maybe I'm dumb, maybe I'm not, but I just said, look, I'd already said yes to the Warriors. I haven't signed anything. Yes, correct. Yes, we could start ratcheting up the price, whatever. I said, I'm a man of my word and I'm not going to go back on that. Even Wayne said that, even Wayne asked, look, I'm not sure what's going on with the Warriors deal, but if you want to come to the Dragons with me, you can absolutely come to the Dragons with me. Broncos all of a sudden were like, oh, we got this, that for you. And it was just like, I'd given them my word. So went across to the Warriors. Look, I take the piss out of myself more than anyone. I didn't actually play that bad. Like, people like, fuck, had this like shocking thing. Like, I just didn't do anything.
Yeah.
I actually started really well, especially kicking in that because it was my first year kicking.
You kicked sideline.
Manly. That's again Manly round 3. But I just struggled. I really struggled off the field. That was the key. It was like young, new country, really toxic relationship off the field.
You're getting paid in a different currency, like, living in just the whole, everything about it is completely different. And I can vouch for that because I obviously went through the same thing. And, I'll admit that I struggled as well, like away from football. Like the Warriors as a club, and I'm sure you'll attest to this, were magnificent.
Right. So
the
good.
Club, very professionally ran, resources, the boys, incredible.
So, that's a lot of people don't realize. Like, the Warriors as a club is surprisingly one of the most professional clubs in the NRL.
100% agree.
Probably top 5.
Yep, agree.
It was just like, on top of that though, I had a toxic relationship, like a really bad relationship with my ex-girlfriend, like an abusive relationship on her end. Like she was so abusive and controlling, it was crazy. And she'll admit that. I mean, not that I'm fucking going to get her on camera and be like, hey, fuck, tell everyone how you fucking treat me like shit. Yeah. And so I had that. Then I was fighting with like living away from home.
Yep.
And then I was fighting with Manu Vadavai's the other winger. So you're just kind of like, you're a little piece of shit compared to him. But it's just the truth. It's the truth. And I understood that.
Yeah.
But so it got to the point where I was kind of like, I just was struggling like to communicate. I didn't understand the defensive systems. I was like I would say to the coach, like I don't get it. Can you tell me, are we up and in or up and slide?
Yeah.
And it was this kind of like very complex, like,
Yep.
well, just, if you want to come in and you've got to make the play. Like, it was just fucking weird. I just didn't get it. So everything, including my own attitude, just hurt me. It just all went wrong.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I was just like, man, I just got to get, and you know what's one of the biggest factors? The biggest factors was the weather. I struggled so much with the weather because I'm from the Gold Coast.
Yep.
And so like waking up and having to put jeans and shoes on all the time and have a jacket with me all the time.
Mate, it would rain for legit 6 weeks straight in Auckland.
Mate, and I just like, I couldn't like go on a training and like not being able to run out in this beautiful sun. It's hot. It's fucking, you know what I mean? Just that freshness of it.
Yep.
Running out, raining, cold, constantly like this. Fucking fingers are hurting from catching balls and all that kind of stuff. That really, everything that could go wrong kind of went wrong, outside of me fucking getting done for, I don't know, some criminal activity and losing my contract. So I do believe it was my fault.
Yeah.
But in saying that, I'm sure there are things the clubs could have done as well that would have helped me a little bit.
100%. So you started the Broncos, went to the Warriors, bounced around, had a few more stints back at the Broncos, stint at the Dragons, stint in rugby, and then...
Well, so went back to the Broncos, fought my way back in, broke my ribs and my lung collapsed, so broke 6 ribs, lung collapsed. You would have been playing that game probably.
Jeez.
You didn't know? Okay, so round...
What year was that?
That was 2010.
No, I debuted in 2011.
Oh, okay. So 2010, against the Warriors, broke 6 ribs, lung collapsed, and that moment was the beginning of the end. 2010, because I was out like. Long story short, was trying to get back early. Initially it was my pushing to get back early, but then after that the club kept trying to rush me back. And then it was just a spiral from there, pretty much.
So the decision. When did you make the decision to retire? And did you have anything straight away set up for post football? Did you have any qualifications? Did you study at all? What were you thinking? Were you mentally okay? Like, what was your thought process?
No, I was in I was just like, I'm quitting. I'm just done. But there was no like, thought out plan or decision or anything like that. I was so
no transition to retirement plan.
No way. It was just like, I was in such a mental bad space that I was just like, I'm quitting. Fuck this shit. Whatever. At this point, like my mental health was so deteriorated. There was no like plan or anything like that. It was just like, broken promises, money owed, contracts, this, that, people treating me poorly. It was just like a mixture of my attitude, not wanting to do it anymore, but plus also like, things going poorly when it comes to, look, put it this way, nearly every non-big NRL player, so all the big players, like, there might be like 10 in a squad. They usually contract negotiations go pretty well for them, usually. But those, not necessarily fringe, but first graders that aren't on the big coin, nearly every single one of them can tell you of a contract negotiation that was fucked.
100%.
And so I just happened to be in that position every single time, like, big injury, re-signed for fuck all, came back 2011, ready to go, fitter than ever. Boom, Ivan Hanjak gets sacked, new coach comes in, Anthony Griffin, who coached the Broncos under 20s. So he's got all his guys that he loves in the under 20s that are in the squad. I'm the guy that Ivan used to love, and all of us. And then, and on top of that, there were things that were agreed to that the Broncos didn't deliver on, and it was just a snowball. Then like, if my mental health had been sweet, I would have been able to bounce back. But because it wasn't, it just like got worse. And then eventually, I was just like, fuck this, I'm done, and just eventually was working, got an offer of to work as an electrical apprenticeship. If I played local league down in Wollongong from Nathan Feen. And took that. Yeah.
Jeez. So I guess let's get into some post-footy stuff now, man. And that's incredible. Like, not many people can say that, they lived out their dream, especially like playing for the Broncos, as you mentioned. And, seeing that jersey and the feelings that you get towards that jersey is pretty sick. And you'll have that for the rest of your life, which is so sick. But yeah, post-football, mates. Probably probably more known now post-football than
crazy.
for your football career, mate. As I said off the top, I'm a huge fan of what you do. I love what you do. But, started the Locker Room podcast, 5-6 years ago?
Yeah.
Talk me through the decision to start the podcast.
So I've always been a very tech-savvy person in the sense of like I love computers, I love internet culture. I used to love gaming. And so I've always been aware of kind of the latest trends in technology or whatever. And podcasts, I don't know how I stumbled along Joe Rogan's podcast, but this was like 6 years ago. Stumbled along it. Before podcasts even existed, 2012, I was in the process of setting up a video game news show. Where I would like talk about video game news. Sounds fucking funny, eh? What a fucking idiot.
Imagine you did that.
Oh, bro.
Man.
You know how big I'd be now, though? Yeah. Imagine how big I'd be now. It's 2012, and I can talk and whatever. I know heaps about video games. I still know heaps about video games.
Gaming's massive. Yeah.
Gaming's huge. It's the biggest entertainment industry in the world. As a matter of fact, it's as big as movies and I think like print combined. And so I was really keen on it. This is how keen I was on it. Like there was a part of me that was like she doesn't know this, but I was part of me because I was in such a bad relationship. I was going to literally sell my house at the time, hope that I could get together maybe 20 to 30 grand, break up with the missus and move over to South Korea, just to experience like that culture and everything like that. And just, I didn't tell anyone. I wasn't going to tell anyone. I was just going to do it. Never did it, obviously. And then with the video game show, like I was like, man, I've got to focus on footy because I was still trying to focus on, this was before, might have been mid-2011 because this was before I went to the Dragons. And then my mental health just continued spiraling. 2012 was probably my worst year mental health wise. Anyway, so I'd always kind of loved the idea of having a show or talking about things on the internet. And then the Joe Rogan Experience podcast, I stumbled upon that. And I used to work like really long days in above ground mines where I'd put my hard hat on and I had my beanie. And then I'd have wireless headphones hidden there and I'd go do these monotonous as tasks. Like usually if you didn't have music or things to listen to, your just head is off. Like I can't believe how people do it. And I would just listen to podcasts all day, just all day. So much so that I don't listen to Joe Rogan anymore. I haven't listened to him for years because like I've kind of heard everything he has to say. Not everything he has to say, but like you just heard it. Anyway, so I was like, man, I would love to start my own. Initially it was going to be like, just interview anyone about stories. And then I was like, well, then I got to compete with the world. Like if I'm just interviewing anyone about stories, that's the whole world is my competitor. Whereas like rugby league, no one's doing it in rugby league.
And you know rugby league.
And I know rugby league. And also I have that inherent respect because I played rugby league. And I know some of the boys as well. So I was like, why don't I give people an insight into who they are as people? Because like they get so unfairly maligned. Not like they're the most oppressed people ever or anything like that. But this is a huge thing in rugby. Rugby league is a huge part of Australian culture. And there was a huge misunderstanding of the people that did it. And so I just was like, I want to give the community that loves rugby league an opportunity to see these guys as they are as people and just break down the stigma because the power back then wasn't in the players' hands. The media could create whatever narrative they wanted, whether it be good or bad. I've said this a few times, but how much do medias, if you could say, take someone's name, let's just take, I don't know, Andrew Fafita. How much money has the media made off putting his name in a headline? How much revenue has been generated? That's all well and good when they're building up his profile. That's great. But then how much money do they make? They make the same amount of money when they're building up his profile as when they're destroying his profile. His value goes down when they write a negative article that isn't true. Their value continues to go up. So he's actually, not only are they making money off his brand, he's losing money because his personal brand is taking a hit. And so I was like, this is just unfair. Like, how's that fair? Like, fair enough if they're using his name to build it up, but where's the responsibility if they're tearing him down with a fake story? It's different if he did something wrong and they've got to write about it. And so, I just wanted to give people an insight into these people, like players as people.
I love that. And I still remember the first time actually I came on the Locker Room. It was, would have been about 5 years ago, middle of 2016. So the year we won the comp. And you messaged me on Instagram. And I was like, yeah, man, like for sure. I love that. So I was like, where are we doing it? And then messaged me back. He said, all right, so I'll meet you at Ridges in Cronulla at the hotel. And I was like, rocked up to the hotel, and he'd hide out this hotel room, and this like sort of pack up studio is in the room. And I walked in, and it was this cool like little setup. But talk me through about how did you go about hiring the hotel? Why did you do it? And that sort of startup phase for the locker room.
Well, so basically there was the idea was, how do I remove the friction of players coming on? Players coming on is the hardest task. Yep. It's not the editing. It's not the sitting down and talking. It's how do I get the players that I've never met before to come on? If I could pop something up in their living room, that's the easiest way.
Yeah.
How do I get close to that? Okay, well, I get 2 media pop-up walls. It's this kind of like material, but it looks like a wall, and you Velcro it to these steel frames that fold down into luggage things that you can wheel. Yep. And so you Velcro it tight, and so on camera it looks like they're looking at a wall, like they've come to my studio, but in reality it's just 2 media pop-up walls sitting behind us, and you can't see left to right of us. And so that was a key way to make it work, especially in a time where most people didn't know what a podcast was.
Definitely.
So when you said come on my podcast back then, people were like, what the fuck is a podcast? Like, bro, is this some kind of rape dungeon or something? Are you inviting me to fucking do weird shit to me? Never met before, and you're like, I need an hour and a half of my time. And so it was all about just making it as easy as possible.
Yep.
To get the boys on and just like express who they were as people and everything like that.
How do you feel toward NRL players who come on your show?
Appreciative.
Yep.
So appreciative. Doesn't matter how big I get. Doesn't matter how big the brand gets or whatever. I understand that without the players coming on my show, I wouldn't be in this position. And that's just straight up, like maybe I could have gone down the route of me just talking about footy, but the big numbers and everything like that is always telling stories.
Yep. When I guess moving on to the next bit, which was the bloke lager.
Yeah.
Mate, talk me through your thought process around this. What made you, come up with the idea when you're like, oh man, I want to start my own beer.
Well,
bloke lager, bloke in a bar, it's got a ring to it. Talk me through it.
Well, it was always the plan, like any show, like my passion is the show.
Yep.
But any show, you have to rely on sponsorship to like generate any kind of income. It's a bit different today. Like you can get subscription models, that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, and I was always like, man, I don't want to be relying on some company to sponsor my podcast and then they pull out of the sponsorship and then I literally have no income and I've got to go back to work. Then I've lost all of these years of building up another career.
Yep.
So I was always like, why don't I build a platform and launch my own businesses off it? Because in any retail market, the hardest thing and the most expensive thing is marketing and being known, just getting your name out there. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of other hard things, but you'll ask any startup or craft beer, it's like, how do we get our brand out there? Like the brand is the value. It's not the beer. The brand is the value. Like any time you hear these like big sales or whatever, they're not buying the actual beer. They're buying the brand that sells the beer.
Yep, 100%.
You look at Apple. Apple's brand is the value. I'm wearing an Apple Watch. I've got an Apple phone, but Apple's a computer company.
Yep.
And we don't think about that. You don't realize that, like, if Holden, I think I spoke about this before, but if Holden released a watch, you'd be like, what the fuck is a car company, Holden, releasing a watch? And yet both of them are companies.
Yep.
Both of them create products exactly the same, but Apple's branding is so good and so strong that you don't see that. So I just thought that if I build up this community and create a brand that resonates with them strongly, it won't actually be about the product. Now, obviously, you've got to create products that they're going to buy. You can't just create products that they're not interested in. And so, building up the community over those years, I knew that it wasn't necessarily about the product. It was about, what did it mean to have that in your hand? What did it mean to be a bloke in a bar? It means to, care about your mates, have a bit of a laugh. It's okay to be a bloke, but at the same time, have discipline, honor, and integrity. Be a good bloke. Don't be a dickhead.
Yep.
Don't bring other people down for no reason. Love footy, all of those kind of things. And so the name actually came from Sandra Earl messaged me asking to do a show together where we talked about footy. And at that stage, I was like, look, bro, I'm not confident enough to be able to talk about rugby league without bagging the boys, like talking negatively, because I don't want to come on there and not be critical of a performance, especially when they've played poorly. And so I just wasn't confident in my ability to express that without upsetting the boys. Whereas now I'm confident enough to be able to say, like, look, probably didn't play the best, but like, that's not the end of the world. He's going to bounce back. There's no one more disappointed than him. And here's 10 other reasons why he didn't actually play as bad as you think, kind of thing.
Yep.
And if he had a shocker, I'll just be like, look, fuck, he had a shocker, but that happens in footy.
Yep.
You know, that's much better than saying, fuck, he played terrible.
Yep.
He's a bum.
Yep.
You know, saying like this happens is the boys, like everyone in rugby league, I wish they knew that the boys are okay with criticism. They cop it every single day when they walk into that video session. So this
Every day you're getting
every day
critiqued every single session.
Every single session. So this idea that permeates from the media that the boys are snowflakes, they can't take criticism. It's like, that is utter nonsense.
Yep.
It's how you say the criticism. Are you critiquing them, or are you actually having a crack at them as a person?
Yep.
Calling someone a bum because he had a bad game, that's not critiquing anyone. Saying his kicking game needs to improve because he had 2 7 tackle sets, the player will be like, you know what?
Agree.
You're totally fucking right.
Definitely.
Totally fucking right.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, so I wasn't confident enough. So eventually I created a show for Shandor, and I was trying to think of names for the show. And I was lying in bed. I usually come up with really good ideas when I'm like halfway between sleep and wakeness. I don't know what the fucking... It's probably some meditation that I do. I don't know. Maybe it's natural. Maybe I'm naturally a holy kind of guy or whatever, spiritual.
Organic.
Yeah, organic. I'm very organic. I'm really not. I'm too fat. The Angus cry. Low-key. Is that low-key top one? I love trolling with people with it. It's fucking so fun.
That's another story about it.
So, yeah. And I was like, no, it just came to me. Bloke in a bar. Rolls off the tongue perfectly. Can be anything, but also it can be sport. You know, like... I've got plans that we still may execute of like sending 2 young lads or a lad and a girl, or 2 lads and 2 girls around the world and send him to the best bars, you know, and they review the sports bar, and they were like, things like that. You can do anything with Bloke in a Bar. So I was like, it's the perfect name because it doesn't have to just be about sport, even though it will be just about sport. It gives us heaps of freedom to go any direction we want to go, and it sounds cool. And it's one of those names that you're like, when after you hear it, you're like, it's so obvious. How come no one else thought of that? It's always like, you know, after you hear the idea, you're like, fuck, that's so... Like, for example, why has no one ever called a beer bloke? It's synonymous with Australian culture. Like, that's the most obvious name in the world. But that's what's so good about the idea, is that the obvious idea is like, you know they're going to resonate. If someone says that's obvious, but no one thought of it before, it's resonating. Yep. And so that's how I come up with the name.
Man, that's awesome. That's a cool story. And you mentioned about the branding, and one thing that, you know, Bloke in the Bar has is an incredible brand, and this, it hasn't happened overnight, and it's been a lot of hard work on your behalf. But the brand is incredible. The brand resonates with so many people, especially within our rugby league community. Do you have a strategy for the brand? Did you sort of just wing it? Did you, I guess, you know, get some ideas of someone else, or just like, look, I'm just going to build this my own way and just fucking give it my own spin?
You know, there wasn't like an initial plan from the start years ago, but it was more just based around like, okay, so what is this for? This is to add value to rugby league. Yep. And an extension, add value to Australian sport. Now, I played rugby league, so this is where we can start. Like, how do we add value to this community that has been not robbed, but for so many years been treated as a mechanism to make profit, without actually saying, are we adding value? Are we building this game up? Are we building this community up? So that's the basis for everything. Like, is this, whenever I do something, whatever, is this adding value to the community? And the rest of it, like you talk about culture or whatever, if you're adding value to the rugby league community via quality content, it kind of just forms a life of its own. The underlying key factor to all of it with adding value is integrity. Like, keep that integrity no matter what. It's easy to put that shit story up, the clickbait. It's easy. Like, you see breaking news, 200 players in a fight, fucking blah, blah. I can post that. It's we don't know what actually happened. There's no quotes, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
Easy likes, easy engagement, all that kind of stuff. But is that going to add to the rugby league community? Especially if nothing's been proven or whatever. No, it's not. And it's not what this is about. This is about adding to the rugby league community and having integrity, like, all the way through, all the time. And if I ever stuff up and, you know, fall victim to wanting to get engagement, whatever, I'll be the first to be like, you know what, I fucked up. I shouldn't have done that. I think I've been pretty good for quite a while. But when it comes to like values, again, it's just about like, it's okay to be a bloke.
Yep.
And girls too. It's okay to be a Sheila.
Yep.
It's okay to love sport. You don't have to feel bad about that. Be honest, have a laugh, and just be there for your mates. Honestly, that's as basic as it is.
I love that. It's so simple, like simple core values.
Yeah.
Strange resonate with it.
Well, a lot of people like, if you said to a lot of young men nowadays, it's like, what's your principles? They were like, what's a principle?
Yeah.
Well, these are underlying core factors of what it is to be a human being. What do you stand, like, what's integrity? Well, it's having a consistent basis for is this the right thing to do, regardless of the result it will give me? You know, for example, integrity for me is, I said yes to the Warriors. Now, that's going to cost me hundreds of thousands of dollars. Will $100,000 change your integrity? Then you don't have integrity. Yep. You know what I'm saying? Yep. And so, like, outside factors shouldn't change your principles. That's what a principle is. It's regardless of, put it this way, like, if someone says, fuck you, Chad, you know, the natural reaction is to be like, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. But you, a principled person or whatever, regardless of, and then we're not perfect. No one's perfect. I'll probably say fuck you too, then get knocked out by them. It's all good. But what I'm saying is that principles are things that don't get affected by what's happening around you. Yep. And if you base something on that and they're good principles, I think usually most people, they won't be able to articulate why they're so attracted to your brand, but it is because you have a set of principles and you stick to them regardless of outside results and incomes. For example, do I put this controversial post up that may be considered negative that's going to get 10,000 likes? Or do I say, you know what? I don't care about the likes. What I care about is I don't believe that that's the right thing to do. And that's kind of where Bloke In A Bar fucking comes from.
I love that. Awesome. Talk me through a normal day for the bloke, Denan Kemp. Talk me normal day. What time do you wake up? What do you have for breakfast? Normal day.
Mate, so I'm a night person. I probably wake up about 8:30. Yep. I'll wake up, check emails, check Instagram, check the breaking news. I know it's bad for you, and like, I think a bit of advice, if you're into like self-help and all that kind of stuff, don't think that when someone says like, oh, you shouldn't check your phone for this amount of time, and it's like, don't fall into the trap of, oh fuck, I checked my phone, like I'm a bad person or I'm not doing this right or whatever. When that advice is given, that's the ideal life to live that you should be striving for. So if you are not there yet, don't get upset at yourself and anxious and think that every person that is excelling is doing those things. You know, I don't do those things. Sometimes I eat really poorly. Sometimes I check my phone just before I go to sleep, even though I shouldn't. Sometimes I check my phone as soon as I wake up, even though I shouldn't. So I think that's where like a lot of the self-help stuff is quite toxic. And they create this illusion that these people are living these like perfectly structured life when it's not true. And a lot of creativity comes from angst and clutter and not schedule. You know, if you're scheduled all the time, put it this way, like they always say, I bring it to music. An artist always drops a good album after a breakup because creativity usually comes from pain. Yep. There's also like a theory that a lot of the, you know, minority communities, they're more creative because they've got trauma and pain from their past. So it creates more art and all that kind of stuff. I
can understand that. So
if you're ever in the mindset like, oh, I've got to be like robotics, don't get me wrong, discipline is fucking great. Like it is really good. It's a platform for everything. But don't beat yourself up if you're not doing fucking, you know, the perfect lifestyle. So anyway, I'll wake up, check my phone, check Instagram, check Facebook, check Fox Sports. Oh, well, don't check Fox Sports. Like there's a NRL Universe. And if you go to that website, it'll have like all different websites and like the latest breaking news. As we like, obviously we're going to still release breaking news, but as we grow and have our own content, as you've probably seen, we'll try to only use our own content, like, you know, interviews with the players, using quotes from that as well. But you know, you got to all the big media companies use each other's quotes all the time. Yep. I'll check that, see if there's any big stories. Then I'll usually try to get a post up by 10 o'clock. And then around 10 to 11, I will, I'll just check everything, like check the news, check everything. And so the first few hours is basically like just, you know, the emails, the news, creating a piece of content for that day at 10 that gets released at 10. And then from about 11, I'll walk to the gym. 11 till about, probably I'll either do boxing or I'll do weights or whatever. Probably say 11 till 1, I'll be walking to and from the gym, going to the gym. And then from 2 till about, I don't know, probably 2 till about 5, I'm editing. And then from 5, I'm on the phone creating content like memes, whatever else has been breaking that day. So I'll try to post 6 times a day in the feed minimum. Yep. And then at least 10 to 15 posts in stories minimum a day. It's heaps of work. I'm probably not off my phone as in like not working until maybe 11 o'clock at night. And then I'll watch a movie with the missus from till about 1, and then I'll read a book. I always read a book before sleep, get the blue light off my face and everything like that. And I usually read fiction. I like fiction. And then I'll go to sleep, and then it'll fucking all happen again. When it comes to eating, I don't usually eat. I try to fast until about 1 or 2 o'clock, and then I'll have like rice, the packet rice with like mixed vegetables and put cheese in it. It's fucking mad, bro. Bro, it's mad. You know what? I thought it was random too. And my ex missus was from Central America, El Salvador, and they used to give us the rice, and it would have vegetables in it, and they would mix cheese to it. It must be some Central American fucking feed or whatever. Incredible, bro. I'm telling you, you've got to try it. And put salt in it. Incredible. And then other food I'll have is like, 4 pieces of toast with 4 eggs on it. I'm guilty for, having a chocolate bicky here and there, especially lately. Favorite ice cream is the triple caramel chunk Ben and Jerry's. Very guilty.
Yeah.
And then, so that's usually my day.
Yeah, nice. It's awesome to hear that stuff, actually. Who is Denan Kemp's biggest influences?
My dad, bro. My dad. Not when it comes to the creativity side, but just the work ethic.
Work ethic, yep.
And just the, people, I feel people fall prey to thinking, okay, grind for the next 2 years, and I'm really going to do it in 2 years. I'm talking 20 years. Like, think of a 20-year vision. Like, if you ever get, I break it down to my missus all the time because she likes to create content and that, and she sometimes gets a bit like, oh, maybe it's like, maybe you shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. She does like makeup content, and I'm just always like, look at all those big YouTubers. Let's say they started for 8 years and they've got 1 million subscribers. If you actually break down their numbers, it's like 200 subscribers per month that they're gaining. Mm-hmm. Now, if you said to them, you're only going to earn 200 subscribers per month, you'd be like, man, fuck that shit. Mm-hmm. Fuck that shit. And yet we look at the end result and we go, man, like that would be so good. But you got to understand that like it's a 10 to 20 year thing.
Years of hard work.
Yeah, it's a 10, and you got to, but also like break it down. Like look at their sub count and be like, okay, yeah, maybe there was exponential growth in the last year, but that first 5 years, they were gaining 200 followers per month.
Yep.
Now, if I say to you, you're going to grind more than you usually do, and you're only going to get 200 extra followers a month, you're like, bro, that's fucked. But that's what it takes.
Yep.
That's what it takes, and you have to have that 10 to 20 year vision. I always say, like, imagine where Bloke In A Bar is going to be in 10 years. Imagine how big we are going to be in rugby league and the sport in Australia in 10 years.
Yep.
And how can you stop us?
Definitely.
Our costs are so fucking low. We don't pay for any advertising. We have an inbuilt community that we're trying to give back to, and also they give to us. It's unstoppable. And that's what, if you keep that grind, you will be unstoppable with social media, because there's no glass entry anymore. There's no, and they're just doing their job, but there's no one at Fox Sports, or there's no one at Channel 9 or Channel 7 or Channel 10. There's no gatekeeper anymore. Yes, they still get to choose who gets picked for them. Mm-hmm. But, before we were growing up, the generation before us, there was one guy, or let's say there's 4 networks that you can go to for rugby league, even though there's really only 2, but let's say there's 4. Yep. There's 4 guys in position of power, or girls, that say, you get the job, or you don't get the job.
Yep.
That guy doesn't exist anymore.
Yep.
So there's no excuse. You've just got to be willing to, don't get me wrong, you need to be honest with yourself. If you're not entertaining, or you're not charismatic, or you don't have the skill set, you've got to be honest with yourself. Like, and be like, look, I'm just not that good at this. People aren't, what's the word? Vibing with me or whatever.
Yep.
But that doesn't mean that you can't go into another position in the industry. If you love to create content, maybe you're just not the face on camera. Maybe you're the guy behind the camera with the ideas. So, yeah, I just think that with the internet now and content creation and everything like that, like, you just got to understand that anyone that is at the top, there was a long period, years, where they were only getting 100 to 200 extra followers. Put it this way. So how much I got? So 150,000 on Instagram, about 140,000 followers on Facebook. I've been doing this for 5 years. So what's that? 12 months, 12 months a year. 5 times 12 is 60. No, yeah, 60. 5 times 12 is 60.
Yep.
So 150,000. We'll just do the Facebook 100
divided by
60. 60. 150,000 divided by 60. That's 2,500 a month.
Which, when you break it down, it's really,
you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
not that fucking crazy.
Yeah.
That's, and then divided by 4. That's 625 followers every week.
Yeah.
And what's crazy as well is a lot of those followers came exponentially in the last few years.
Yep.
So if you really went, okay, let's say, take away 2, let's say the first 4 years, which is 50 months, you know what I mean? And then you divide it by whatever. Like it starts becoming, and let's say you divide 60,000 by 50, it becomes even less of a number.
Yeah.
So when you break it down, you're like, fuck, you know what? That is attainable.
I love that, and I love the fact that social media has just given everyone, a chance to have a go. And you're so right. Play the long game, work ethic. The people who grind are going to be the ones who come through and really make do of the opportunity that they have.
And that, just for anyone listening that's interested, break whatever your dream is. Break it down into small steps. If you want to be bloke in a bar, you just have to get 600 followers a week. Do you know what I mean? For the next 5 years.
Yeah.
That's fucking very doable.
Definitely.
It's very doable. Yeah. Sorry.
No, I love that. All right. So you just briefly spoke about the future, 20-year bloke in a bar. Yeah. What does the future hold for bloke in a bar?
So basically, we want to be, I feel we already are a sports network. You're just not in a traditional sense, but we want to be a sports network, Obviously, I don't know shit about any other sport. So if we were to go into other sports, it wouldn't be me doing it. We would find the person that is in that community that is going to offer value to the community, because we're not trying to we always want to offer value to the community. So the initial short-term plan is to be the number 1 online sports platform for rugby league. But then long-term, I would love to help positively impact sport in Australia, because I think it's so important to young kids' lives, to our culture, like bringing people together. I think it's the best way to bring cultures together, to bring people together. I think it's empowering for women as well. I think it's in all areas of life, sport is only a positive in my opinion. Teaching people how to lose, how to win, how to work together, how to have a huge goal and work together to overcome it. Because what is life about other than overcoming goals? Like there's no point in anything. Like if you're not striving for something, that's when you feel hopeless. That's when you get depressed. That's when you're like, what's the purpose of anything?
Yep.
In my opinion.
I love that. All right, like we always do, guys, I'll put it out there on the Instagram story Q&A for people to chance to throw in a few questions.
Sorry if I'm talking too much, guys, and not letting Chatty speak. Fuck, we dead.
It's not about me, mate. It's about you today. But yeah, we'll throw these up. We've got a few questions here. First question is from Sam Capes. Thoughts on expansion to Perth or second Queensland team? Do you think it will work in Queensland?
I'm not sure if it'll work. It's a tough one because, yes, there is not that much talent, but you have to weigh up. Okay, yes, it will divide the talent, and maybe the divide between the best teams and the worst team will get bigger. Maybe, we don't know that. But then you also have to say, is that more important than the game slowly getting swallowed up by other games?
Yep.
And so people that are like, well, there's not enough talent, we shouldn't do it. It's like, okay, so if we just focus on the teams we've got now and you say there's not enough talent and then AFL continues to grow, what does the game look like in 50 years?
Yep.
Because the last thing that we need is for AFL to really crack Queensland and New South Wales. And so I can understand the argument of okay, why aren't we expanding to Western Australia or whatever? Yeah, fair enough. But I just think the argument of there's not enough talent, that shouldn't be a reason for why we don't want to expand as a game. I think it's like any business, expand or die. Yep. Any business that sits plateaus, eventually it'll just die. And anyone that knows business well will tell you that. If your revenue is just staying the same every year, you'll eventually get swallowed up and beaten by someone.
Yep.
So the thought process is right. I understand people's concerns about the talent, but I think that we could take measures then. Let's say the talent does become an issue. We could take even more drastic measures to spread that talent out. And yes, we may lower the bar slightly in quality, but people won't notice it. Two teams playing each other. Let's say, with less teams, it's at 100%. Then the game is incredibly high standard. If you reduce that to 90%, fans just want their team to win or watch an exciting game. Yep. Sometimes the worst quality games in history are exciting, and sometimes the highest quality ones with no fucking points are so boring.
Yep.
And so I just think that concern can be fixed if we take more measures of going, okay, this salary cap, this, you know what I mean? We can look at it, okay, well, you're only allowed this amount of star players or whatever it is. Just measures can be put in place to spread the talent out. But what can't be put in place is if we start snowballing as a game and losing market share and losing players and all that kind of stuff because we didn't expand. That can't be fixed, in my opinion.
All right, next question is from Cobbler_95. If you could pick any other team to play for, who would it be?
Mate, this is a tough one, but I would probably have to say the Storm, only because of it's not necessarily the team. I hated playing the Storm. They make players the best they can be as humans and as players. You know, there's not a single if you go down to Melbourne and you can't be the best you can be, you're the problem.
Yep.
And so I would just have loved to have experienced working under Cam Smith, Billy Slater, Cooper Cronk, Greg Inglis, Israel Folau when he was there. I just think that when we talk about life being about challenges and being the best you can be, now I'm sure when I was younger I was like, man, fuck that. But if I'm being totally honest, the Broncos is the only club for me. Like, I know I played for other clubs or whatever, but when I think of just that, the beautiful colour, the beautiful feeling, the Broncos is it for me.
Yeah, I love that. All right, last question is from Moe_Crane. What's peak arousal look like for the people's beak?
Cam Murray. Peak arousal really is, though, in a serious answer, peak arousal is having a beer, family has money and it's taken care of. Doesn't have to be heaps of money, but financially secure, everyone's happy and healthy, and the rugby league community is a better place. That's my goal, is like, if I ever step away and stop doing Bloke In A Bar, is that people go, you know what, Bloke In A Bar made this game and a sport in Australia a much better place to be a part of. That would be peak arousal for me.
I love that. I love that. That's sick. Well, mate, we'll finish it up there. Thank you so much for coming on today, Buzz. I really, really do appreciate it. And that's it for today's episode, guys. Don't forget, make sure you check out Bloke In A Bar podcast on all the podcast networks and on YouTube. And we'll see you guys on the next episode. Yow.